Good morning, everybody.
Morning.
Morning.
And welcome. Thank you for joining.
Morning.
Thank you. I see people are still logging on. Thank you for joining this room. Welcome. Thank you. Just give it a few seconds for people to log in. I see the participants are joining in steadily. Thank you and welcome. Thank you to the Construction Education and Training Authority for arranging this webinar for us today. Thank you. We will be joined by a panel of guests from the Department of Education and Training, the Council of the Built Environment, South African Women in Construction, and the Construction Education and Training Authority. Just bear with us as we're trying to log into the session. And perhaps while we are waiting, could you just maybe share on what you hope to achieve in today's session? We do have a chat box on the side of the webinar. Could just maybe share some of your expectations from this dialogue for today. Those questions will be collated and facilitated to the panelists during the session. Thank you once again for joining and welcome. It will be an interactive dialogue, and as I have mentioned, we will be joined by the Construction Education and Training Authority representative, the Department of Higher Education and Training, the Council of the Built Environment, and we also have representation from the South African Women in Construction. So I'm looking forward. Thank you and welcome once more into this webinar today. Just to briefly introduce our guest speakers or our panelists for today's event or this dialogue for today, we have Mr. Ngaba Ngandela, who is representing the Office of the Minister of the Department of Higher Education and Training. We have Mr. Sabelo Wasa, who is currently the Administrator at the Construction Sector Education and Training Authority. We've got Ms. Skile Kwinana, who is the President of South African Women in Construction. We also have Ms. Priscilla Mdlalose, who is currently the CEO of the Council of the Built Environment. I would like to welcome our panelists and once again, thank you for joining our dialogue and our webinar today. We will have presentations by the Administrator of CETA, Mr. Sabelo Wasa, and also presentation by the CEO of the Council of the Built Environment. Our dialogue will pretty much flow from these presentations. We will engage with the panelists and we'll also have some key focus that will be focusing on the dialogue. But before I take you through the objectives of our dialogue today, allow me to introduce myself to you. My name is Vuyolwe Tubadi. I am a quantity surveyor by profession. I also have a qualification in property development and management with just over 12 years experience in the construction and built environment. I am a director and a shareholder of a company called RLB Pented Quantity Surveyors. We are a South African-based company with a national footprint in the rest of sub-Saharan Africa, but we're also part of a global RLB cost consultancy brand, and we specialize in construction cost management. It gives me great pleasure and honor to facilitate this panel today, as we will be sharing insights on how to make women the center of skills development in the construction industry. It is not a secret that the construction industry is largely a male-dominated industry. In fact, that has remained reasonably consistent over the past 8 years or so. and with a proven record and a breakdown of around 89% male representation and only 11% female representation. So we are taking advantage of August as Women's Month. We are showing up in spaces and we are taking charge to continue with these dialogues on how to track and monitor the implementation and representation of females in the construction space and the construction industry. As I have mentioned, we do have key objectives that we'll be focusing on today. And just to run through 4 or some of the important key objectives that we will be focusing on will be to really discuss and engage with our panelists on setting up and addressing platforms on monitoring the participation of women in the construction industry. This dialogue today also aims to assist in the development of a strategy to be employed in increasing women participation in the construction industry. It's not enough to just have women. We need to increase the participation of women in the construction industry. And to also determine the type of skills that can be imparted to women. Where is the shortage of the skills that can be imparted onto women to improve their involvement in the construction industry? It's not enough to just provide entry. We need to improve where is the shortage of the skills. And also, this dialogue will also aim to create a post-webinar routes and channels on how to improve the women participation in the construction. So it will not end just here with the dialogue. We need to have post-webinar discussions, post-webinar engagements with the relevant authorities and organizations that are driving the involvement of women in construction. So, ladies and gentlemen, and our audience, and all those who've also just joined us, welcome once again. Allow me to introduce or to hand over to Mr. Sabelo Wasa, who is currently the administrator of the Construction Education and Training Authority, who will be presenting to us and will be just sharing with us on what do they have in the pipeline that will address these objectives that I've just mentioned. Please remember to drop in the chat box any comments, any suggestions, what you expect and questions which will be collated. And because we've got 2 presentations, we will try and attend to all the questions towards the end of this webinar. The time allocated for this session is 2 hours. It will be informative. We will be dealing with important information that feeds with to this topic. So welcome, relax and enjoy. Mr. Sabelo, I will now hand over to you. Thank you.
Good morning. Thank you very much, Violet. You know, in government, we've got what is called protocol, and protocol demands that the office of the minister speaks before I do, so that they open the session formally and set the scene. So if you would allow me, facilitator, to ask Mr. Ngaba Nadela, who's representing the minister, to talk first.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Wasa. Mr. Ngaba, all protocols observed. Please pardon me. I will now hand over to you, and please feel free to step in. Thank you.
No, thank you very much, Ms. Badi, and good morning to my fellow panelists, and good morning to other participants who have joined. You don't have to worry, ma'am. Mr. Wasa is the host here. We are guided by him. If he wants me to speak before him, I accept. So thank you very much.
Thank
On
you.
behalf of the Minister of Higher Education, Science and Innovation, Ms. Badi, Higher Education, Science and Innovation, Minister Nzimande, I am honored to be joining the administrator of the construction CETA, Mr. Wasa, and his team at the CETA, as well as yourselves as other stakeholders in the sector. under this theme of making women the center of skills development in the construction industry. Your theme, of course, links perfectly with that of Government Women's Month, which is Generation Equality, Realizing Women's Rights for an Equal Future. The objectives of this Women's Month are to advance efforts to end gender discrimination and advance the rights of women and girl children in the political, economic, social, and cultural spheres of life, and to mobilize women and strengthen their organized formations towards the development of sustainable action coalitions. The month also aims to advance efforts to develop a national consensus around a program of gender policy priorities and programs, and to advance the gender agenda in the period 2020 to 2025, and towards the achievement of gender equality in South Africa by 2030. Women's Month must always be a heightened opportunity, without, of course, excluding other months of the year, for celebrating and reflecting on women's achievements, the important role women play in our country and internationally, as well as the challenges they face in the struggle towards their full emancipation. As we continue our fight against the COVID-19 pandemic and its immense socio-economic disruptions, let us draw inspiration from the legacy of the brave women who defied the apartheid state. Their hopes and dreams live on in today's generation of women who will move South Africa forward, and these women are yourselves here on this platform. Ms. Robeck, in her article published on March 13, 2020, entitled Women in Construction 2020, Breaking Grounds, Making Inroads in the Industry, observes the following about the United States, that in the United States, women hold 9.9% of construction jobs. Most of these are office positions. Women hold only 1% of trades jobs. When you consider that there's a huge skilled and technical labor shortage in the industry, it's easy to think that women could be an untapped resource. Addressing the gender gap won't happen overnight, but across the industry, slowly but surely, women are making strides, and I'm sure we are going to hear more about this kind of situation happening in South Africa today through this platform. Of course, the above observation is equally poignant in South Africa given our history. This is the case because research has shown that there is a huge gap in the development of skills among women in the construction sector, like in the mining sector. Figures from the CIDB show that 48% of the country's construction enterprises are women-owned. However, the vast majority of these are very small companies. 95% of them fall within grades 1 to 3, which only enables them to handle projects of very small value. While there are only 8 women-owned enterprises at grade 8 of higher value. It is against this backdrop that Minister Nzimande supports the strategic direction that the CETA is taking, which is to put in place specific and focused interventions to improve skills development among women in the construction industry. While these interventions are crucial, so is the need to monitor their effectiveness in order to ensure that indeed the objectives of skills development in the sector is being achieved. Consequently, we understand, and I'm sure we are going to hear more about the fact that the CETA has developed a women's skills development barometer for the construction sector. This instrument will be used every year to determine the success or failure of the programs of the construction sector in developing skills among women in the sector. The barometer will be an important objective tool that the work of the CETA and that of the sector in general can be judged against on a yearly basis. Lastly, research has shown that within the construction sector, there are numerous skills that are in operation but remain informal. This is the case because the people who are performing those skills have no certification of any kind, and as a result, they remain unregistered. This is an unfortunate situation because as unregistered operators, they cannot have access to formal assistance from, among others, the CETA or even other resources. This has tended to hinder their development over the years. We are happy that the CETA has decided to do something to address this injustice and to establish a mechanism for the formalization of such skills. The main challenge, of course, is that many of these people lack any formal education and therefore fall outside the formal system of education and training. To ensure that they are not excluded and for their inclusion, we are happy that the CETA has resolved to find an acceptable way of formalizing such skills that they do have. To achieve this, we understand that the CETA has partnered with South African women in construction to do that through a recognition of prior learning program, which we are going to hear more about today. This will, of course, require financial assistance, but there can be no gainsaying the fact that it will be a worthwhile investment towards the fulfillment of the country's democratic mandate. As the founding father of our democratic South Africa, Utata Madiba, once said, freedom cannot be achieved unless the women have been emancipated from all forms of oppression. Economic oppression because of lack of skills among women is uppermost in that oppression. These skills will help the country as we restart our economy post-COVID-19, among others, through infrastructure development, as the President has pronounced. Once again, and on behalf of the Minister, I wish to thank the Administrator for this invitation to participate here today, and to thank everyone for attending this magnificent event. South Africa indeed belongs to all its people. Let us make our future work for all of us. And I thank you, Ms. Patti, and I look forward to participating.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ngaba Nandela. Very informative insights there, and I believe steps are already in place, or steps are already being taken by the government to bridge the gap of the skills development agenda for women. Thank you so much. Mr. Wasa, I will now hand over to you, and you can start with your presentation for this session. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Violetu. And good morning to all the panelists and the participants to this webinar. We are truly honored that you have honored our invitation to this webinar, very important webinar that we are having today. I don't want to repeat what has already been said, but everybody knows that transformation in this country is a national imperative. It's not something that we choose to do, and at some stage we decide not to do. So it's important that we are all we are all involved in driving transformation in the country. And every year we participate in these activities where Women Month is celebrated, and we don't see much, unfortunately, in most of the cases after we have celebrated the Women's Month. What we are trying to do as a construction sector is to answer certain questions about that have been always there. I don't know, Violetu, I have terrible feedback that I'm getting. I'm not sure where it comes from. Maybe you can ask the other panelists to mute their...
Is it better now, Mr. Wasa?
Yes, it is better.
Muted.
It is better. Thank you. Thank you. So what I was saying is that the questions that we need to ask is whether the activities that normally would take place during the month of August, designated to be a Women's Month, are taken through, in other months of the year, as Mr. Mandela has mentioned earlier on. We as government entities, we come, Ms. Bati, this thing is not subsiding, this noise.
Okay, can I just get our technical team?
Yes, thank you very much. What we are trying to answer here as construction CETA are two questions. Yeah, I don't know, for some reason as well, I can't run my presentation, but I will talk to it and people will get the presentation. Most probably. Oh, okay, I see that now it's starting to move. We are trying to answer two questions in the main. How can we meaningfully measure whether the government institutions that hold these activities on every year during August month, how can we hold these institutions accountable to the promises that they make when there are these activities of the month of August? And we are trying to, we will attempt to answer that question from the perspective of CETA as to what is it that we'll be doing in that regard. But secondly, how can we take the activities of month of August beyond August, but every month we are mindful and we are aware of what is happening around us as it relates to how women are participating in business and are participating in particular in the construction sector. So we will be dealing with this. And now the other panelists have already mentioned that construction industry, like mining, are very difficult industries to transform from a women perspective, given the fact that they are said to require some physicality and so on. And this has been an excuse over the years that has been used to keep the mining industry and the mining and construction industries untransformed as a result of this. If you look at the workforce in the construction sector as it stands, 89% of workforce in the construction sector is made up of men, and only 11% are women in this space. Mr. Ngandela has mentioned as well that although that you might at first glance think that 48% is quite a reasonable number of percentage or representation in the companies that are registered with CIDB. However, you know, these companies are between grades 1 to 6, and only 8 of women companies are in grade 8. And I think that this is a serious indictment to all of us as a country. When you look at this question of transformation, there are different schools of thought. Other people are arguing that for us to make a contribution that is meaningful, small contractors, small and medium-sized contractors or entities that are operating in the construction space must be developed, must be supported, must be given more work so that they are able to participate. Black people in general must be given an opportunity to participate, and in other words, all the vulnerable groups. But in the construction sector, CETA, we think that skills development is key to any transformation that you would like to achieve. And now I am talking, I decide that I'm going to go on, Ms. Party, but this noise is really not subsiding. But I'll go on anyway.
Get a noise coming through.
Come again?
I'm just asking, can I get a thumbs up? Are the panelists getting a noise coming through, or is it just coming from your side?
I'm not hearing it on my side.
Okay. I'm not sure. I'm getting a terrible feedback, but it's fine. I'll continue. We think as construction sector that skills are critical to developing the sector and transforming the sector, developing the previously vulnerable or the vulnerable groups, as it were. And now I'm talking as a boy from deep rural areas of Alice, who had seen what education and skills that one acquires as he goes on and develops in life can make a difference, to deal with the issues of poverty. The education gives us all an opportunity to really turn our situations around. And therefore, there cannot be anything better than education and skills development in general. We are making the contribution that we are making as construction sector, being mindful of the fact that there is a context to where we are as a country, and this context is informed by a couple of things. One of these is that we would like to get the women. I am really struggling, but yeah, we will try. We are trying to solicit the views of women and the contribution of women on how construction sector can do things differently to impact meaningfully to them. In other words, we want to set the agenda as construction sector for transformation, but we would like to listen to the people that will be affected by this transformation that we are talking about. So this webinar is going to be important for us to get the views that women have and other people that are participating in this webinar. We are mindful of the fact that for us to succeed and for women's struggles to succeed, men must be involved. Because without a man's involvement in women's struggles, this thing will continue. We will still be experiencing the massive problems that we're currently experiencing of gender-based violence, because we are excluding men, or we think that men should be excluded in women's struggles. And this is the reason why I thought that it was important that the school of thought was that let's get a woman from construction sector to make the presentation on behalf of construction sector. And I said, no, I am the head of the organization. And therefore, if people are not hearing these things from me, given the fact that transformation is a national imperative, people will not take these things seriously. But this is a very serious matter that must seize all of us. The second thing that is a context of this webinar is that CETA would like to make a self-assessment and come to the women of South Africa, especially in construction sector, and tell them about how we have been faring as the CETA, at least in the past 3 years, so that you are able to then next year, when it's August month again, you can come back to us and say, CETA, this is what you said last August, and we would like to know what it is that you have done. What is the progress that has been made, and why there is no progress in areas that you have not made progress? And thirdly, we would like to advise all women in construction that and black people in general who are affected and other vulnerable groups who are affected by issues of transformation, that we are launching a program that will be running with South African women in construction. And this program is meant to make a meaningful contribution to skills development and developing people in general that are participating in the construction sector. In doing this, we are also mindful that the construction sector is one of the sectors that have been affected greatly by the economic forces way before COVID-19. And now COVID-19 is bringing a different spin altogether, in that, for instance, 65% of businesses are saying that this COVID-19 is going to be affecting their businesses negatively, way more than what was the case in 2008, 2009 crash that we have experienced. We would like to therefore start by telling women in South Africa that CETA has got policies that are very favorable to women. However, the challenges that we have been having as an organization is our ability to monitor and evaluate the policies, and making sure that the impact of our policies is assessed out there. For instance, one of the requirements, policy imperatives of CETA, is that in all the learning pathways that we deliver to our learners, women must have 50% representation in all these learning pathways. So if we are running apprenticeships, 50% of the learners that are participating in that apprenticeship program must comprise 50% of the total. Secondly, where CETA has specifically allocated projects to women and projects that are specifically targeting women, 100% of learners participating in those programs must be women. Furthermore, CETA is saying at least 2% of people that are participating in all our programs must be people that are living with disabilities. So these are the policies that we have as an organization. But the observation is that because we are not having effective monitoring of these policies, they might not be implemented as intended. So our scorecard, or barometer, as Mr. Kadela had put it earlier on, is going to be affected by by all areas of our business, starting from accreditation of skills development practitioners, skills development providers, so your training providers, the registration of assessors and moderators, awarding of projects to employers, people that get service providers that end up being employed to work with the employers in delivering the training programs, the appointment of moderators and assessors to work with these training providers that gets to be assisting the employers in implementing our programs. The learning pathways, learner demographics, we will talk to that, and also the internal CETA procurement report card. How are we allocating the work amongst the women folk businesses that we have? We have difficulties in giving you the feedback that we would like to give you in some of these areas. For instance, the accreditation as it stands of skills development providers, it's difficult to know whether a company is a women company or is a male owned company, because there are shortfalls in our system currently, in that this information does not get to be loaded in our system when we're loading the projects. So we have no idea at this stage as to whether we are giving work to women dominated companies or to male dominated companies. But as we develop this scorecard or this barometer, we will be able to improve this information so that you are in a position to hold us accountable in this regard. So we also this is a similar situation with companies or training providers that end up being appointed to work with employers when we award projects. It's impossible for us at this stage to know whether these are women companies or are male companies. With regard to other areas of our business, for instance, if we look at the registration of assessors and moderators, you will see that we are clearly not doing well in this regard. As it stands now, we are at about 23% for moderators, and we are at 20% for assessors, and I'm talking about women representation. And of course, that this thing must be definitely improved. And I will talk to you later on about how we are planning to improve this. When it comes to other areas, like your skills development providers, the allocation of projects to accredited training providers, there you would see that we are in the mid 40s% allocation to women entities, and we again would like to improve this situation greatly. For learning pathways, the demographics there are also not great, although that we are not doing badly. There, what I would like to say, because I don't want to go through these slides in nitty-gritty details. What we are observing, as coming out of this information, is that you would find that for RPLing and things like a short skills program, there is an acceptable number of women. But I would like to argue that these are learning pathways that we would like to reduce our participation as an organization too, because they have a tendency of making us as an organization to come across as a job creation organization, which we are not. We are a skills development organization, and therefore our focus going forward in the main will be informally certificated programs like your learnerships, your apprenticeships, your professional registration. In other words, giving people bursaries, candidacy programs. We will be funding those kind of programs because we can't over exaggerate the importance of us producing more professionals in the construction sector if we are to transform this sector, because professionals have got a massive influence in the sector. Everything that they do has got a cascading effect throughout the sector, and therefore if we are not going to be focusing on producing more of the professionals, it will be difficult for us to make any impact in transforming the construction sector rather. What are we doing? What are the measures that we are taking to correct some of these issues? There has been a signed MOU with SAWIC, and we are busy reviewing this MOU because this MOU is a bit troubling as it is. But I also don't have time, as I have mentioned to those that might have attended the webinar that we had on the 30th of July. I had indicated that I don't have time to understand different entities that we are working with, and therefore memorandum of understanding for me does not make it. We are changing this, and we are making it a memorandum of active partnership with SAWIC. If you look at the current memorandum of understanding, it makes CETA to be a big brother and SAWIC to be a little sister type of a relationship, where SAWIC is portrayed as an institution that must come with a cap on hand to beg from CETA. And we are saying, we will give you office space, we will give you admin support and that sort of thing, and then we will give you projects. And I'm saying that should not be the relationship that we have with SAWIC. The relationship that we have with SAWIC should be that of partnership as equal partners that are driving transformation, that we are busy driving, all of us, and that would advance the struggles of women in the construction sector. But also what we are doing is we want to invite other women groups in the construction sector or women formations in the construction sector to engage with us, so that also they join SAWIC in holding us accountable to the work that we must do to advance the struggles of women in the construction sector. And therefore, we are launching this scorecard as also a way of saying to women, hold us accountable going forward, so that we are able to come back here and not even wait for August next year, but consistently keep tabs on us as to whether we are doing what we have promised to do. So we want to work with all women formations in the construction space to drive the agenda of women participation. And that brings me to the legacy project, as we call it, that we want to launch in this webinar. There is a project, there is a research that was commissioned by CETA in 2019 through Wits University. And this research has given us some important insights about the formal part of the construction sector. These people that you'll find next to Build It and other hardwares with placards saying that I'm a plumber, I'm an electrician, and so on. And these people that we are using in our houses, because we don't ask them as to whether they have certificates to do the plumbing when we have problems with plumbing. But these are the people that are having experience and skills in different areas of the construction sector. And we thought that we should really be taking that research that was done last year forward. The research is making some important insights about what is happening in the construction sector. One of the things that this research has found is that people that are having these informal skills in the construction sector are largely young people between 25 and 35 years of age. And that these people are largely from South Africa and Zimbabwe, and they have got skills in different areas like painting, bricklaying, plumbing, and so on. And on average, they've got between 1 and 6 years of experience. So if you look at that, it means that these people have got reasonable number of years of experience because this 1 to 6 is an average. And one of the things that this group has mentioned is that they would like to participate in government projects because they think that there is stability in participating in government projects. But what is striking to me about this research is that it never looked at the gender representation of the people in the informal sector. I don't know how many of these people that we are talking about here are female, how many are males. But if you use a rule of thumb, you will know that mainly these are male folk in the country that are participating in this area. However, we have decided that we are going to be running this project with SAWIC. And this project will entail us going to every part of this country, every township, every village, where we can find these people. Every hardware shop or hardware store where you'll find these people with their placards, and we register them. We create a database, and once we create this database, we'll RPF these people, assess what skills do they have, and whether how far it is that they can be formally certificated for what they have been doing for all these years. And from there, we will make sure that these people get to be certificated. Once they are certificated, we will form cooperatives for them. We will properly capacitate these cooperatives so that they are run like businesses, and that these people will then have proper capacity to participate in big projects in government. Government has got a program of kickstarting the economy after COVID-19 through infrastructure development, and these people must participate in that program, and we must give them tools for them to be able to participate. And furthermore, these people would have a flexibility of continuing to service their client outside the cooperatives. But when they are tendering for big work, whether it's in the private sector or in government, they will go as a cooperative so that they have got proper capacity to deliver on the work that would have been given to them. So that is what we'll be doing going forward. And we are busy finalizing the nitty-gritties of this project with SAWIC, and that will be happening soon after this webinar. You would see, SAWIC and their partners starting to engage with the people in different areas, municipalities, whether through media and so on. And you must know that this is this program that we are talking about. Thank you very much, facilitator.
Thank you, Mr. Wasa. Thank you for that presentation, which is highlighting what is CETA doing, what is in the pipeline, what are the corrective measures being currently put in place by CETA to address and to involve women and to provide a pool of women into construction. Perhaps you will agree with me that having an effective monitoring tool should be one of the most important tools to implement, because accountability tends to lack. We need to be able to track the corrective measures that have been put in place, and implementing an effective tool should probably be at the top. you would agree with me, I think. And because we need to track deliverables, we need to be able to track and put people into accounting positions. So would you agree that CETA should implement an effective monitoring tool as one of its key corrective measures?
Yes, yes, definitely. So should I engage with you as you're asking this question?
Yes, you can, but I'm just
Okay.
posing it out there because I think it's one of the most important tools, you know. But I can park it for now. You can maybe think about it. You've also mentioned about increasing the pool of women into the training. We have 20% male currently, artisans, and 23% females. Does your facilities accommodate digital infrastructure? You know, because now after the COVID, after the pandemic, we need to make sure that the facilities and the centers that do provide this training are digitally proof. Are those some of the things that CETA can start thinking about to ensure that the facilities are digitally proved, improved, yes. And then you've also mentioned that you will get into a memorandum of active partnership with SAWIC. I don't see Ms. Kele. Will it hold its members accountable? So those are just some of the things that maybe we need to really engage so that we can track the responsibilities of these organizations and CETA and the partnerships with SAWIC. But thank you. You've also welcomed invitations to partner with other organizations, you know, and perhaps this will now lead me to introduce the CEO of the Council of the Built Environment, Ms. Priscilla Mdlalose, and the Council of the Built Environment currently establishing a women empowerment and gender equality committees. This is where the invitations will now come in, where we can partner with other organizations as SAWIC, Council of the Built Environment, to ensure that we are able to track the deliverables, as you have mentioned, Mr. Wasa. There's other organizations that can be introduced, such as the Women's Property Network, and it's key, which has got key mandates to target women in the construction and the property industry and link them to opportunities. Thank you for the legacy project as well. This is definitely an important project. It will contribute to the economy and to job creation, as we currently are aware that the youth employment rate is steadily increasing. The road is getting steeper, especially for the youth in construction. So the legacy project should play an important role. Ms. Priscilla Mdlalose, I'll now just hand over to you, and you could just take us through your presentation on a built environment professional point of view, as Mr. Wasa has addressed the sub sector of the construction, which is contractors, artisans. You will now speak with the professionals in the environment and how you plan on pulling women participation from a professional point of view, and not just pulling, matching them with the construction sector skills. So I will now hand over to you, Ms. Priscilla Mdlalose. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, our moderator, Ms. Violethu Badi. Greetings to the Office of the Minister that is represented by Mr. Mandela. Greetings to our host, Mr. Wasa, and greetings to Imbogote that is here with us, Ms. President of SAWIC, Ms. Ukile Kunana. Thank you very much for allowing us to participate in this platform, and greetings to those who are participating in this platform today. So I think it is important for us to participate because of the theme of this engagement of today. The theme talks about making women the center of skills development in the construction industry. This is very critical to us, especially as the professional bodies that are representing the industry in terms of skilling the industry so that we have competent people who are undertaking work in the construction. So please allow me to introduce the work of the Council for the Built Environment through my presentation today. I think if you can assist me, yes, thank you. If you can assist me with the slide. Thank you. Yes, so my presentation will cover the role that we are playing as the regulator, and then I will also highlight our legislative mandate, the gender representation in our 6 councils, and the gender representation of the candidates that are registered with our councils. I will also take you through our skills pipeline, so that enable us to attract and retain women in the built environment. I will also talk about the role of the CBE in promoting skills development of women in the construction industry. And then lastly, I will talk briefly about our collaboration with the CETA. So that will be the content of my presentation. So when we look at can you move to the next slide, please? I think if you can assist me with the slide presentations, thank you. So if we look at the regulation or the regulatory bodies within the built environment, we have the Minister of Public Works and Infrastructure, Minister Patricia de Lille. We report to her as the Council for the Built Environment. And then we also have 6 professional bodies that report to the Minister Party through the CBE. So I would like to mention them so that you can identify yourself with one of them or with more than one of them. So we have the first one, which is Engineering Council of South Africa. We have South African Council for the Landscape Architectural Profession. This is one of our smallest council. We have South African Council for the Architectural Profession. We have South African Council for the Quantity Surveying Profession. We have South African Council for the Project and Construction Management Professions. And then lastly, we have South African Council for the Property Valuers. So the role of these councils is to register our professionals. I think our host mentioned that there is no construction that can happen without these professionals. So they are critical. If you want to build a road, you have to design the road. So each and every one of them, they play a critical role so that you are able to roll out our construction projects. So these are critical, but also to be a registered professional, it helps us as well. It helps the client, because one of the key areas that we do as the CBE is to protect the public. So if you are not registered, it means it is difficult for us to hold that practicing person accountable. So these are critical councils that are playing a very important role within the space of the built environment, and then in relation to the construction industry that we are talking about today. So I will also move to the next slide, which is talking to our legislative mandate. There are a number of areas that we look into, but for today's engagement, I thought I'll just pull out only 3. So the first one is to promote the ongoing human resource development in the built environment. I think this is talking directly to the issues of skills development. And then the second one is promoting the liaison in the built environment in the field of training, both in the Republic and elsewhere, and to promote the standards of such training within the Republic. I think our host spoke about those people who are in the informal sector. So we must also make sure how we capacitate them so that they meet the required standards that will that will provide services to the client, which is the members of the public. And then lastly, it is to ensure uniform application of norms and guidelines that are set by our professional councils throughout the built environment. So these are just some of of our mandate that I've put out, but we have others that we deal with as the Council for the Built Environment. And I think I forgot to mention that we are a statutory body. We've been established by the Act of Parliament 43 of 2000. And then on the next slide, I will talk about, again, I think this has been presented, but I just want to emphasize the importance of this engagement today. That if you look at the slide, you can see that about 89% of the registered persons in our 6 councils is made up of male, and only 11% are female. So our engagement today is to really strategize so that we from here, how are we going to increase the red area so that we at least it's 51%, it's not 11%. So we have a job to do, we have work to do. So our engagement today, I'm hoping that the participation even of those through the chat will help us to formulate the strategy so that we help our young girls so that they become registered persons within the built environment, and they are able to deliver quality work in the space of the construction industry. And then the next slide, it is talking to the candidates. Before you become a registered person, you have to go through the training. So after you have graduated, you have to go through the training. You have to be employed somewhere so that you are able to be exposed to the actual work, and you align that with the theory that you have learned from school. So if we look at those candidates that are registered with our professionals, again, you can see that 73% of our candidates are male, and only 27% are female. Again, I think we have to make sure that we change this picture. And when we come back next time, perhaps in 5 years' time, I don't know, in terms of the timelines, we have a different picture here. We have 51% that is red, and we have the other percentage that belongs to males. So the next slide, it is talking to our strategy to ensure that we attract and retain women in the built environment. Sometimes when we talk transformation, we only focus on our professional bodies, and we forget that there is a value chain. For us to be able to increase the number of registered persons, we have to go back. So if you look at this value chain, it emphasizes the need of strengthening partnerships so that when we start working, we are not working alone. So we need to hold hands. So it means it's not just about the Department of Higher Education, but we need to go back and engage the Department of Basic Education so that we are able to fit into the system. And when the professionals are registering people, at least they have a feeder. So this skills pipeline strategy we developed so that we are able to see how we can, which are the key areas that we need to intervene in so that we are able to bring about the change that we desire. So we had 3 phases in this skills pipeline strategy. There is a push strategy or push phase. We have the intermediate, and then the last one, it is the pull phase. So we are saying for us to be able to change and transform and to attract more women, we need to first go to the lower levels of education. That's where we need to have our career guidance so that we attract our girl children so that they're exposed to these skills that we need as a country. And then once we are able to influence them at an early stage, so when they have to choose careers, perhaps around grade 10, at least they have an idea that there is an engineer, there is an architect. So we need to expose them. So this thing, it's not about looking at the end of the tunnel, but you have to put something in so that at the end you are able to reap the harvest that you desire. And then we have the tertiary learning or tertiary education, where then you find that you have to support those students who are interested in our careers. So we need to look into supporting them through bursaries. But that is not just, we cannot just be dishing out bursaries. Again, we need to be monitoring, and we need to have programs, especially, as Mr. Wasa was talking, the Office of the Minister was talking. I was thinking about gender-based violence that is currently happening in our tertiary institutions. So it means our girl children, they need our support, not just financially, but even emotionally. So when we are designing programs, we must also think about all those things so that we are able to support our young girls, so that they come out strong, they come out effective into the world of work. And then we have the candidacy phase, where after graduating they have to be employed by somebody, and then that person or that employer must expose them to relevant learning outcomes to enable them to be registerable with the professional councils. So CBE is playing a very important role in this phase, because what we have done, we've also done our research and we've engaged with the candidates, and we know their challenges, especially those candidates that are Black Africans. You find that they will be employed by somebody, but they don't get exposed to relevant work. You are a graduate engineer, but you are given the work to make copies. So when they take somebody out to the field, they are only taking their white candidates. So some of our candidates have been complaining that, yes, we are happy, we are employed, but the kind of work that we are being exposed to is not relevant to our professions. So these are some of the areas that we have been grappling with as CBE, but also some of them, they need to continue with, they do have training that needs to be paid for. So that's where then CETA comes in, because if we link them with the CETA program, then we are able to assist them. And after the required time frame, they are able to register with their relevant professional bodies. And then once they are registered professionals, we still have to take care of them, because they must continue to develop. There are changes that are coming in each and every one of these professions. So we need to support them. And through our professional councils, they do have the continuous professional development programs that they do. And during this COVID-19 pandemic, I know that the councils, they've been conducting this training through webinars. So it is important that we keep them within the sector, so that we continue to have these skills, so that we don't import skills. We do have the graduates even here in South Africa, but we need to support them so that they become registered people, so that we are able to influence the space that we are working in as women. And just on that area, I think another area that is really marginalized are the area, the small rural towns. Some people are not interested in going there. So we need to grow more of our skills so that we can send these young people so that they can help in those small rural areas. So we need to make sure that we transform, even spatially, we transform the built environment. So this is the skills pipeline strategy that CBE designed, and we are still working through using it as our model. And we have developed the candidacy framework so that we are able now to market it to the workplaces, because as I've indicated, that sometimes we find that the candidates are there, but they are not exposed to the relevant work that is relevant to their profession. Can I have the next slide, please? So here I'm just outlining our role as the CBE. I've touched on the structured candidacy framework, that this framework will assist us going forward to monitor what is happening in workplaces where these candidates are employed. So we've developed it. We have our council they've approved it. So what we are doing now, we engage different workplaces so that those who do not have a candidacy program, they can adopt this candidacy framework and start to align the training of the candidates with this structured candidacy framework. And then I think our moderator has indicated that we have established women empowerment and gender equality committees. We are working together or in partnership with the Department of Public Works and Infrastructure. And I know that Ms. Binana, she's also part of these committees that engage on transformation issues within the built environment. So the key focus of these committees is to monitor progress on women's economic empowerment and their participation in the economy. Because yes, you can have a graduate, you can have a certificate, but if you are not earning an income, or if you are not being capacitated to start a business, it means you won't be participating in the economy of this nation. So we are going to be doing this through assessing the current policy gaps on women, economic empowerment, and gender equality. CETA, I think we will be starting with you because you indicated that you have policies. So we will be coming in and knocking on your door because we want to see whether these policies are really helping women. You know, are they really bringing about the change in their lives? And then another focus of these committees is to monitor progress on women and education. So our focus here is professionalization of women in the built environment. I mean, the studies have shown that there is a high level of dropout of female, you know, due to the pregnancy issues, but also, as I've indicated, that also, you know, gender-based violence, it does affect our young girls, because once you are traumatized, sometimes it's difficult for you to continue with your studies. So as much as we are looking at the issues in secondary schooling, but also at the university, it is important for us to understand what are the issues, what are the challenges that are faced by these young women that we are trying to build so that they participate in the construction industry. And then lastly is to monitor the implementation of gender responsive planning and budgeting framework that was approved by Cabinet on the 27th of March, 2019. Yes, sometimes our government, they are also, you know, there are gaps there. You know, we do have these nice policies, but when it comes to implementation, you find that it is lacking. So this monitoring, it is important for us because there should be a 30% allocated to or dedicated to women procurement. So we need to check whether it is happening. If it's not happening, we need to understand why is it not happening so that we are able to advise the government on those policy gaps. So these are some of the key areas. We do have other areas. We do conduct research and surveys so that we understand that what is happening with women who are in the construction industry. But I just highlighted these few for today's session. So in my next slide, I will be, Now, our collaboration with the CETA, we have drafted a memorandum of understanding. I know that Mr. Mwasa is not in favor of that terminology, but anyway, it's the memorandum of agreement. We need to work together because I think there are areas where we can support, where we can strengthen each other, especially as government entities. The most important one is to develop the monitoring tool. I think our moderator has indicated that, so that we are able to monitor the implementation of the skills pipeline strategy, so that we are able to increase the participation of women in the construction industry. Nothing will change if we are not out there and we are checking what is happening, because sometimes we just have these tick boxes. So it's not only about the number of women, but it's whether they are participating meaningfully in the economy, whether their lives are being changed. So for us, it is important to find out whether those things are happening once they are employed by different role key players in the industry. And then also for me, and this is my passion, rural and small rural towns are my passion. So it is to make sure or to just look at the strategy in terms of how can you support skills development in rural areas in partnership with the built environment professionals. There are professionals out there, so how do we link them with those graduates that are from those small rural areas? You know, sometimes it's good to be a young girl growing up in this rural town. I'm originally from a small rural town in Vryheid. So going back home after graduating, sometimes it's good to go and work in that area. But some of these areas are so remote, so we must make sure that we support them. Also, we can support them financially until they are able to stand on their own. So for us, we are looking at this kind of collaboration so that we do make a change that is desired, especially by women in our industry. So I think just in conclusion, I would just say that it is important for us to understand the role of women in the sector. Can I have my last slide, please? It is very important to understand why and how we can do this. Education is critical. Education and training is critical. It's key to women empowerment. So that is why I think our skills pipeline, it touches even at the level of lower primary school, where we need to start exposing our young girls. So we need to do that. We need to work together. We need to strengthen relationships. Department of Basic Education is part of our critical partner who should be part of such engagements, so that we work together and skill our young girl children, young women, and even in our old age, we still want to be exposed to new developments. When we are working within the built environment, the technology is changing, everything is changing. So we still need to be exposed to such new dynamics. So it is well known that to educate a woman is to educate a nation. So today's session is critical so that we can change our nation. We'll never be able to change our nation without educating our women. So thank you very much again for this opportunity that you have given to the Council for the Built Environment.
Thank you, Ms. Priscilla. Thank you for that presentation. A few points that I have noted from my side is just with regards to legislative mandates and also the regulatory structure. And I think there's an observation that I have made within the BEE scorecards, which is currently a very powerful tool used by companies and organizations. And if you do unpack the skills development element within the construction sector code, there seems to be a gap that does not recognize, there's no distinction between male and female within the skills development element scorecard. The scorecard refers to transformation in terms of race, but it does not address or further recognize, there's no further enhanced recognition between male and female. So in terms of your head counts of professionals and registered candidates, that is just a point that I have noted, and perhaps Mr. Ngaba from the Office of the Minister of the Department could help us with that gap and help us to understand if there is still room to bridge such gaps. We will now look into questions. We have 30 minutes left into the session. The session will end at 12, exactly at 12. We have collated a couple of questions. I am getting feedback that there is sound coming from my background. How is my sound? Thank you. Mr. Ngaba, perhaps if we look into the skills development within the BE code, and whether there are still opportunities to focus or to introduce a distinction between male and female, because our agenda today is about driving skills development and making it the center. So we can generalize and be broad about the topic, but we need to come back to the core issue, and that is, how do we make women the center of skills development? Construction is a broad industry. There is a variety of skill. And as Ms. Priscilla Mdlalosa has just addressed the built professional sector on its own, we need to then match the construction sector with the professional built environment professions. So perhaps, Mr. Ngaba, you could add a note there for us on, is there still room within the skills development scorecard within the BEE framework that can introduce a distinction between male and female and the weighted averages that can be gained? If you provide training to females, you will get more points. If you take females to learnership programs, it still only just deals with the race transformation issue. I will hand over to you to just address that for us.
Oh, you want me to comment now? That's fine.
Yes, we are in the engaging session now. We will be engaging with the panelists. We only had two presentations. We are now unpacking the presentations, engaging with the panelists, and we're also going to look into the questions that have flown through from the audience. That is perhaps one of the first questions before we deal with everything that has just come through.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Thanks. I mean, I think the simple, my own response, the simple answer to your question is that I come from a school of thought and an outlook that says that you cannot win on the table what you have not won on the ground, informed, of course, by one's upbringing in the activism in our country. So the answer is there is always room to tweak and to change and to improve how government does things. And of course, from our side as the Department of and the Ministry of Higher Education, Science and Innovation, will always be fully supportive of any measures. So I'm in a sense throwing it back at yourselves as in particular the women, but all stakeholders in the construction sector, to say that if indeed, which is what we are supportive to, but if indeed you identify it as a big need and a big area of improvement, you must get yourselves mobilized, you must get yourselves to come and support such a move, and we will support it, and we will together go and fight for it with the DTI and at the highest levels of government. So my simple answer to that is there is always space, there is always room. We just have to want it bad enough. And I think in the group that is on this platform, there is definitely that want. And I've been watching all the comments here by participants. And I think it's up to us, the CETA, yourselves, as stakeholders and key role players in the sector, to organize yourselves and to advocate for it. Where I come from, we say to agitate for it. But definitely, yes. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Wasa did mention that we should hold the panelists accountable. So I will hold you accountable to that. Mr. Wasa, I'm referencing you now. You said we will be held accountable, and accountability is very important. And I like, Ms. Priscilla, what you've mentioned about the monitoring of the progress, which I think is so important, because we need to be able to monitor the progress, and that you will also be able to unpack the policies of the CETAs that have just been introduced, that will also now be stabilized in the industry. I like the fact that you will go and you will unpack the policies and check whether they do meet the objectives. Do they meet the objectives of women agenda? It's one thing to have numbers and present our graphs, but we need to be able to have monitoring tools or sustainable models that can give us sufficient information to measure progress. Mr. Wasa, you've also mentioned that I would like to now engage with Sawik. Ms. Kili, are you still with us? On the role that you are playing, with regards to the memorandum of active partnership, no longer memorandum of understanding. Mr. Wasa doesn't deal with memorandum of understanding, memorandum of active partnerships. Ms. Kele?
Okay. A very good morning. Can you hear me, ma'am?
Yes, I can hear you.
All right. A very good morning, and thank you very much for this opportunity. Let me take this time to observe protocol and greet to Ubabu Ngaba, and on behalf of the minister, also thanks to yourself for the opportunity. May you're doing a good job. Also get to greet Ubabu Wasa as the administrator and my fellow panelist, Umamu Priscilla. Thank you. We appreciate the opportunity that you're giving to us as SAWIC. I don't think I'd like to go straight to the memorandum or the terms of reference of the memorandum without necessarily giving you the status quo of the industry, without necessarily repeating what the other speakers that have spoken to before me have alluded to. It is true that each and every year when we have such webinars, we're having webinars for the first time, but whenever we have such gatherings, we find ourselves lamenting a lot in terms of the status. It is still a pyramid situation, the participation of women. You're looking at the CIDB register, you find that it's a triangle where you've got very few women at the top of the CIDB rankings, and you've got a plateau of women that are still sitting at the bottom. So as SAWIC, we've also taken it into our consideration to say, why is it that women are not necessarily growing? Because SAWIC as an organization has been in existence since 1997. So effectively, we're 23 years old in the industry. But to find that the impact that has got to be expected of 23-year-old organization speaks something else and something very different. Well, there's a number of factors that make a contribution towards that. One, given challenges that women are facing in participating in a male-dominated industry, you've got a lot of people that end up giving up along the way as they get tired of trying to get tenders. They're not getting opportunities, so they leave the industry. Meanwhile, they still remain relevant on the CIDB to ensure that someday when they get an opportunity, then they will be able to get back to the construction. So not everything that you are seeing on the CIDB is actually a true reflection of women that are actively participating in the industry. Having said that, I'm not saying women are actually making it, running sustainable businesses. No, they are not. We're still having successful. So as SAWIC, we've had to sit down and look at how then do we get to assist the women in this case. And the reality is that as long as you're going to have this industry, you will have new entrants. And your organizations such as SAWIC have got to also strategize and position themselves as an organization that will become a strategic partner with your CETAs to develop skills, to also develop training providers, and also to be out there as an extension of the mouthpiece and provide the CETA with the necessary warm bodies that are required to be trained. So, having said that, on the agenda items or on the points of the objectives we have laid out earlier and that want us to talk to, in terms of the monitoring of the participation of women, yes, we've had discussions with the CETA leadership before. We've even had a discussion recently with the sitting administrator, Babu Wasa, and we outlined that we need to create an enabling environment for women companies to be able to thrive. In that, we mean, I hear Babu Wasa mentioning that SAWIC must not come with an attitude of cap in hand, and I agree 100%, because SAWIC is supposed to be a representative of women businesses in form of an organization. But unfortunately, Babu Wasa, the reality on the ground is such that if you've got women that are in business that have not been able to participate in a project in the past 3 years, the organization becomes disadvantaged in a way. So, and we are in an organization that is membership based. Our membership per annum right now is only 1,000 rands per year. And I can allude to you now that the problem that we are experiencing with membership fees is very, very difficult. So if there is a challenge for women to afford to pay 1,000 rands, you know, it's a stress problem. The other issue that has already been outlined was the fact that the cost of doing business for the emerging sector is too high. People have got to always renew their documentations every year, and that comes at a cost. Your CIDB has got to be renewed almost every 3 years. Your NHBRS has got to be done every year, and then you've got other documentation according to the skills that the person is up. So it's going to be very critical that we don't just look at it from the one side, but the problem in a holistic way. If we can be able to have our own accredited trainers, that can also make a difference, because once we've created an opportunity for those particular women-owned companies that are going to provide training, then it will help, because the organization as a project manager can be able to derive some funds, administration funds, for them to run a sustainable organization. So over and above the income that is purely right now coming from membership fees can be augmented. Therefore, we're talking sustainability. But above all, we believe that women that are in the sector and are accredited to give the training can be able to train the people for impact, because not just about theoretical kind of training, it is also about the practicality of what is happening. So the training itself can be designed and customized to be able to address the issues on the ground. Secondly, we need to look at the training programs that are relevant and that are befitting for the women. If you're looking at the history of the programs that we've been in partnership with SAWIC, with CETA in delivering, we've got now the last one, which is the apprenticeship that runs for 3 years. Now, look at a woman who's supposed to go out there and look for opportunities as a director. Our policy at SAWIC is that we only take women-owned companies that have got a minimum of 51% women ownership. So this is a woman who is also somebody's wife, somebody's mother, who is also studying in the business. So they've got to ensure that everything balances. Now, if you're taking them away from work or from an opportunity of making money, or for their livelihood, you take them to a classroom for 3 years. It means they've got to be in class for a number of a month or two when they're on block, and then they come back to site. How do they manage their sites in the meantime? How do they ensure that during the time when they're in class, things are happening? So it becomes a misfit in a way.
Yes.
So
Ms. Pinana, I'm going to have to be reminding you of time, sorry. And whilst you are talking about exactly that topic, there's a question that comes through from Pilisiwe on why are SAWIC students always suffering when they must receive their stipends? These are just some of the challenges that I'm just posing because I don't want you to stretch and being just cognizant of time. We've only got 20 minutes left. I'm just going to throw in the question so that you can address with an answer.
But I don't think you are being fair to me, Madam.
I know.
You've given the previous speakers enough time for them to do their presentation. And when I want to make my contribution now, as the industry players in this case, now you want to cut me. So in other words, are you saying to me that the construction sector or the women that are supposed to be participating must shut up and listen? Which is not fair.
Woman to woman, what I would not like to happen to you is for the session to cut while you are talking. So I'm trying to just remind you, and unfortunately, I have no other way but to disrupt while you are talking, because what we could find is the session can cut because we are due to cut at 12 o'clock. So hence I'm posing a question that is SAWIC related, and you were also addressing a concern around students and how they spend money and how they, so it's a question relevant to you. I'm sorry if you think I'm being unfair.
No, I will answer the question, but still, can I at least get 5 minutes? Because I only started speaking at 11:30,
okay.
and you've interrupted me for 2 minutes. Now I'm asking for 5. Please, I beg for your indulgence.
You can have 5 minutes. You can have 5 minutes.
Thank you very much. So in terms of the relevant training programs, I have alluded to that to say, can the CETA look at the programs that are going to allow them or allow us to have the return on investment in terms of training? Right now, you've got a lot of dropouts that is happening. And when you're looking at the stats, it's like women don't want to be trained, but that's not the issue. The issue is exactly what I've outlined that you don't want me to talk about. Okay. And then we also need now to ensure that there is at least that joint stakeholder reporting towards each other, because it is our responsibility. We've got to make sure that wherever government has spent its money, there is return on investment. And over and above that, we hold each other accountable for the training that has happened. So quarterly joint reporting to each other. I'm not just talking between SAWIC and the CETA, but I'm also talking about the intergovernmental stakeholders here. We have got the CBE that is presented. We've got the Department of Higher Learning that is also here. How does the Department of Learning, the minister, ensure that the money that he has paid out to training does get to give the results that are required? So training would be one way of doing it. Then we're talking about the institutional capacitation. There's got to be a way of capacitating the institutions that are strategic partners with the CETA. In one of our discussions, I was mentioning to the administrator that the other problem is that women organizations such as your SAWIC, they are an NPC. So as it is, they've got a constitution that is running, who's going to become part of the leadership and all of that. So at the end of the day, you end up as the president with a group of women that are willing to lead, but might not necessarily have the necessary skills because of the pool, the members that you're attracting, and something that you cannot ignore. So things like or training programs such as your corporate governance and all of that cannot be ignored, and only focusing on your technical skills. For these women, for them to become basically trained and run profitable companies, they've got to be both trained on business management, on corporate governance, and also on site-related technical skills instead of just focusing on the one side. So at the end of the day, the trainings that we have done over the years have more benefited either the community that we are working with and our employees more than it has produced sound and sustainable people that are in business, and also leadership, as I was saying. So to increase the participation of women, it goes without saying that after training, there is no point in training people without offering practical opportunity for them to apply the skill. How do you know that you've trained for impact? Because right now, training that is going on is just ticking off the boxes. Nothing much is happening. After people have been trained, they still remain unemployed. Actually, it looks like people are coming more for the training for the stipend. So the stipend has become a way of making life, because somebody will come to you and say, I was sick. So when I was sick, why am I not paid for being sick? Meanwhile, somebody is being actually empowered. So that education needs to go on and people need to be trained. So in terms of the stipend question that you are asking earlier on, we have a situation right now, and that also speaks to that capacitation of the institution. We have been given a training provider by the CETA, because it's CETA that appoints the training provider. What we have appointed in ourselves is a project manager for the project, because we do not have the necessary skills residing within the organization. So the training provider, unfortunately, is the one that we had mandated to receive the funds from CETA because of their compliance. In our case, we had an issue with our tax clearance. You know, it's a long story that we had inherited as this current leadership. So we're trying to solve that. So then we gave the mandate to CETA to say, please pay this particular company, and then we'll get our money from them. And that has been happening. But now of late, we see that the company is no longer paying us what is supposed to come to us. They're taking our money and they're using it for whatever operational needs that they have, and that is actually advantaging. So we end up with a delayed payment of stipends, but we have tried to do the backlog. And lastly, the learners have got to be educated from day one that when you have not attended classes, whether you've been sick or you have a death in your family or your child is sick, you don't get paid. So they think that because they have budgeted for the whole month that I'm going to get so much at the end of the month. And if they don't get that money, then they think that Sarik has eaten their money, and that's not the case. So the delays also within the CETA of, especially towards the end of the financial year, when you guys are closing your books and you find that there's a delay in the transferring of the monies, also that costs the contribution towards the delay of payment of stipends. Okay, just before I leave, I want a CETA or the administrator to also note the fact that we cannot ignore the scourge or the impact of the COVID-19 onto the construction sector as a whole. Now, apart from whatever that we've discussed earlier on, we also need to look at the new opportunities or the new way of doing things as far as training is concerned, so that you don't necessarily have to have people sitting in a classroom the whole time. We are now talking on a virtual platform. So if training can also be digital in a way, that can help, because I can be able to manage, or where I can be able to record my training, then I can record the training session with the facilitator, then get back to it after I've been to work for the whole day. So those are some of the ways that we need to look into, because there's a new normal that we are dealing with. We also need to look at the new opportunities that are coming with the pandemic. So the training that the CETA has got also has got to be futuristic. We cannot just continue training women to become apprentices when we're talking about the fourth industrial revolution. When are we going to start having training programs that will speak to alternative building technologies? Because that is also here and is happening. So we've got to be diverse and think forwards, and also the systems that will help the same women to ensure that their companies are being run properly. I was listening to a very interesting conversation as I was driving home last night on one of the radio stations, whereby they're talking about the drones. Now, I'm thinking, if there's a drone that can be able to do the calculation and the counting of stock at Pick and Pay or wherever, why can't we look at the forward way of doing things? They're saying, can't we have drones to help the women to count their stock inside and all of that? But there's a lot of things that are happening there that are actually stifling the growth of women. I will stop there for now, but I also wanted to touch on the issue of the gender-based violence. And the reason why the gender-based violence is so high is also because women are more dependent on men across the board. Women are dependent on men at home for provision. Women are dependent on men on the side. So at the end of the day, they end up not knowing what needs to be done because they are relying on these men. And sometimes this contributes towards the gender-based violence, because some men are very patriarchal, so they cannot be told by a woman what to do and what not to do. I thank you, Chair. I feel very aggrieved. Let me register my grievance.
Thank
Woman
you
to
so
woman.
much. Ms. Kwinana, we are here to look at solutions. We are here to find the solutions together. Mr. Wasa, perhaps you would like to answer to what Ms. Kwinana has just mentioned with regards to the facilities. I know that you are currently in a stabilizing phase of the CETA. There's a lot of work for you to be done in this phase. So you'd like to perhaps just to respond to Ms. Kwinana's comment there. Sorry, you are on mute.
Yes, thank you very much, facilitator. I just want to, maybe before I come to Ms. Kwinana's comments and observations, to start with your observations and comments you made earlier on. You suggested or you asked the question as to why are we considering monitoring and evaluation as one of the corrective measures that we are taking. Certainly, I have mentioned in my presentation that monitoring and evaluation is very important and that we are attending to that. In fact, what we are doing in that area, we are institutionalizing monitoring and evaluation. So it's not only going to be focusing on specific areas of our business, but it's going to be institutionalized. So everything that anybody does at Construction CETA will be subject to monitoring and evaluation. We will be more moving to measuring impacts more than just doing a contract management, and we call that monitoring and evaluation. So we'll be looking at the impacts of our training. I think that Mrs. Kwinana is correct by saying that one of the challenges that we are having as it stands is that we are pushing numbers out. We training looking at numbers, and I think that Mr. Mandela will agree with me that the department might be contributing to this problem, in that there are targets that gets to be set in terms of the memorandum of SLA that we signed with the department as CETAs, and therefore we are compelled to deliver certain numbers because there are targets set for particular numbers that we have to achieve. But we need to move to measuring impacts. After people have been trained, we must know as to whether the employers are happy with the people that we produce, and if they are not happy, what is it that we need to do? If people are running their businesses after the training that we have provided, we should be able to know whether their customers are happy with the kind of service that they provide. So it's important that we deal with all of these matters. So this is a matter that I'm passionate about, and we are looking at institutionalizing this matter. One of the things that I just want to talk about briefly relating to the corrective measures that we are putting in place. CETA is employing quite a number of women, quite a number of women, and we should not be having the problems that we are having, where women companies get to jump too many hoops before they get to be registered. We want to get, tomorrow we are having a webinar for internal staff, women folk within the construction sector. And one of the things that we'll be talking about is what is the role that they should be playing to really talk to their sisters who are looking for services from construction sector, and make sure that we don't create problems for women, but rather when you are dealing with another woman, you rather call this woman and say, I want to help you to expedite the registration or the accreditation of your company, but I need to advise you that look at this and look at that. And instead of being aggressive and talk in a very negative way towards other women. And this is the conscientization issue that we are dealing with as the organization. The use of technology in our training. It's a welcomed contribution, and we have been looking at it. But the difficulty that we have is that our training is not limited to the theory, but there is a great practical side of it, and you can't learn bricklaying virtually. You have to hold the brick and use the mortar and so on. And we know that there are other ways, of course, with the alternative building and so on. And I welcome the contribution that Ms. Quinana is making. But we are awake to the issues and the need of enhancing technology in the sector. We're looking at, improving in our training material to make sure that when we train plumbers, they don't come and go through the whole building looking for a leak, but they can use technology to look for a leak and be able to find it and fix within a short period of time, instead of wasting too much time as it is the case now. I want to agree with you, facilitator, on the issue of the scorecard. That's an observation that I have made as well, that the scorecard is not specific to the issues of women. But I thought also that Ms. Quinana, maybe it's because she felt under pressure. I thought that she was going to comment on that, because I know that SAWIC and other entities like NAFBI and BBC that are very active people that have been involved in the construction sector might have something to say with regard to this in terms of their engagement with the Department of Trade and Industry. And lastly, facilitator, that I think that the point that I was making about SAWIC not coming across as people that must only be having a cap on hand and so on, is from the perspective of the CETA. That when we come across as CETA as this big brother who must give handouts to SAWIC, instead of saying we are partners and our main theme, something that is bringing us together, is transformation and nothing else, and everything else will fall from that principle that bring us together as organizations, and therefore that is the point that I was making on that. Thanks, facilitator.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mr. Wasa. Ms. Mtlaleso, there seems to be a question around the skills pipeline that is currently being facilitated by the Council of the Built Environment. Should there not be a post-registered professionals? How do we hold them accountable? How, besides to just engage, how do we hold the professionals accountable to go back into the cycle and feed in the new skill that is being provided? And you have mentioned initiatives such as supporting the graduates and establishment of student chapters and career guidance outreaches. Should that not be a role of professionals who have been pushed through the system? Perhaps you can just give some insight there.
Thank you for giving me again.
Something is wrong with your sound.
Oh, I was muted. Yes, I'm saying yes. That is a very crucial question. We do have, the 6 councils. They do have voluntary associations that are associated with them, and through them, that's where we also have the professionals that are those professionals. They have programs where they can assist, the young and the upcoming graduates or professionals. But I think that area also needs to be monitored, because as I've indicated that, it's only a chosen few that benefit from that. So it means that's where the people like us, the regulators, we need to intervene so that we ensure, whether it's the private sector or the public sector, that all the graduates are being assisted. But yes, there are programs. What the councils are also doing, they do give points to those professionals who are mentoring the young and upcoming ones. So it's like an incentive, so that they are able to ensure that they transfer those skills to the young graduates.
Thank you.
Okay.
Question from Tabiso Mulodzi. What is your target per year to develop the woman to be accredited in a construction, and what is the strategic policy approach to implement that? Perhaps it's quite a broad, it's asking about a target per year to develop the woman that needs to be accredited. I think, Mr. Wasa, you have addressed this in your slide.
Yes.
Maybe you didn't look at targets for the upcoming years, but you have addressed the targets and where we are in terms of accreditation.
Yeah. No, we have, but maybe just to add something with regard to this is that the issue of accreditation and the companies that are accredited as well. It's something that is a strong area of transformation that we are considering within the limitations that we currently have. So it's very difficult to say that we've got X target for that purpose. But what we have a target for is that those companies, especially small, medium-sized enterprises that are training providers and women-owned, what we are insisting on in the window that will be opening soon is that the companies, the more established companies, training providers that will be appointed to assist the employers to implement projects. We will insist on the 30% participation of smaller players. And within the period that we will be, if that training provider is appointed to work with the employer for a period of 3 years, within that 3 years, the tables must have shifted, that the person who has started as a 70% and the other one started as a 30%, shifting places, the other being 70 and 30. And so that the ones that was 30 earlier, now becoming 70 by the end of the project, must be now the main training provider going forward, and the new entrant must come in as a 30% partner to that. So we will be rolling it out like that. So that is the target that we have, but we don't necessarily have a specific target on how many entities that will be registering going forward, because registering is based on or dependent on the applications that we receive.
Thank you. There's a question for Ms. Kele. I hope you have forgiven me. How can SAWIC assist women-owned training providers with workplace arrangements during training of unemployed rural-based youth, especially in the Northwest? This is coming from Mapudi Rachikana.
Okay, if I had the opportunity, honestly, to do the full presentation, because I was talking to that when I was talking about also the intergovernmental stakeholder management and working together, because we are also struggling right now with the training that we are providing to get workplace opportunities for placement of the same people that we're training. And by the way, we're not only training on construction, women in construction, but we look at the entire value chain. You've got your built environment professionals. Hence, you also need to amend and change our name from SAWIC to SAWIC NBE, because we are now SAWIC and the built environment. So we are having a challenge because there is no enabling environment or the pipeline that can be attached for us to have those opportunities. One of the things that comes to mind is that the Department of Higher Education is the one that is holding the purse, is actually the funder and the sponsor of the training, through the money that is being administered by the CETA. And they've got projects. So I don't see a problem with you looking at your project that are infrastructure development related, and maybe close off about 10% for practical learning. So when people get to a contract with the Department of Higher Education, for instance, people are putting and there's this noise now. I'm hearing it, CEO. I'm sorry, administrator. I'm hearing that noise now. So when you've got such projects, it must be embedded in the contract of agreement that these people are going to absorb some of the learners that are on the training program that is being funded by the CETA. So in that case, you can be able to have opportunities for application of learning. And I'm still standing on my point, administrator, to say, when I'm talking about the theoretical training, is the one that I'm saying it can be done virtually. But when it comes to the practical learning, people need to be on site. Obviously, you can't do construction in class, but people need to be on site. Right now, people get to be trained. After they get to be trained, no work. So they sit at home. And we know that a skill that is not applied is a skill that disappears and dies. Thank you. I'm just talking return on investment for both the Department of Education and CETA. Thank you. You are muted.
Sorry, I'm not sure if that sound was coming through from my audio. Thank you for that comment, Ms. Kelly. And seeing that we've come to almost the end of our dialogue, time being on our side, it has been 2 hours that we have since engaged with each other. I would like to go around the table with the panel to provide comments on the discussions for today. I mean, time can never be on our side to talk around these issues. They are broad. They need proper involvement, as Mr. Ngana has also commented that they're happy to engage, but it needs people on the ground. It needs change of agents that can follow through post-dialogue conversations and be people who will be driving and wearing the banner. Ms. Kele, you are one of them. You know, I will just make reference. Ms. Mdlalose, really appreciating you driving the Council of the Built Environment as a woman. You need a partnership with other women organizations that are driving the same agenda. And I can tell you definitely the Women's Property Network is one of them that you should be engaging, that are driving the mandate of bringing in skills of women into the construction industry. But that's a lot of work. It needs people on the ground. Student chapters need to be established in organizations that are led by females. There needs to be a link between professionals, students. There needs to be intentional networking opportunities that are linked to internships. So I will just go around the table and start perhaps with Ms. Mdlalose to just give your closing remarks around the agenda for today.
Thank you very much. I think it has been for the Council for the Built Environment a very useful platform. Yes, we do have a working relationship with the people around the table, including the Department of Higher Education and Training. But we are still looking for more partners, as I've indicated, the Department of Basic Education, because we understand that we'll never be able to transform and change the industry without those partnerships. We need to strengthen them, but also around the issues of transformation, economic transformation. Yes, we need to work hand in hand with SAWIC and other women organizations, so that we understand what is happening, because we do have policies that have been developed to support and help women. So we need to understand the blockages so that we are able to transform and change our sector, especially to increase the number of women who participate in the economy, and so that they can benefit, as women in this economy of this country. So thank you very much again for inviting us. I'm sure that this is not the end. We will continue to engage even outside this platform.
Mr. Ngana, I'm sorry, I keep muting my mic because I don't want to have audio disturbance from mine. Just a comments from your side, from the Department of Education, and steps and goals that we can hold you accountable to, and comments around today's dialogue.
No, thank you very much. It's been very good. I've enjoyed the engagements. Maybe just to touch on two last issues, or to reiterate as they've been touched on. I think the one point that I really like, that I think President Sawik that she touched on, which I wanted to comment and say we are already doing that. So in terms of infrastructure projects, in terms of what also Mr. Wasai touched on, that there's a big drive led by the presidency to reignite our economy using infrastructure projects. We are already, it's something we will do for those projects that are within the control of the department, but we are already engaging with the presidency as well. As I think colleagues know, that there's a, I forget what they call it, but there's an infrastructure unit at the presidency led by Dr. Sputla Ramkopa, I think, that is driving this big infrastructure project. They will soon be gazetted. We are engaging them precisely on the issue of, as opposed to the broad, and there's a lot I can say, and I noted that someone didn't like my response about the BE and skills and women. There's a lot we can say around that. I think with the experience we now have as a country, I know we started off somewhere with BE, with ownership, and then there was a big push to make it more broader. Other things were included, including skills. But I think on top of that, with everything we have now learned, I think we also now know better, and there's an opportunity to refine, because also not only we're talking skills here today, of course, and women, but not only that, I think people would have heard, especially in the ICT sector, there's another controversy now where even foreign-owned companies are now BE level 1, which in a way kind of defeats the whole purpose. So I'm sure that there is a wave of further engagements and refinements on BE, and it was in that context that I was saying we will do our part, but we need the whole of the women activists in the construction sector to support us, to lift us up as we have those engagements. In fact, to go with us when we go to the platforms where we're having those engagements. But anyway, on this specific issue, the issue is we are working very hard to ensure that as these big infrastructure projects are being contracted on, already in the tendering space, in the tendering phase of the projects, that the issue of skills development and using those workplaces as training spaces, as the minister is always saying in terms of the slogan of the department, turn every workplace into a training space. So we will make sure that we do that, certainly for those that are in the control of the department, but as I'm saying, through engagements with the presidency, we are trying to make sure that all the infrastructure projects are used as training spaces. That's the first thing I wanted to say. And then the last thing maybe was really just to say to, I think, to Usis Priscilla, it was quite interesting that to see that the proportion of women within the candidates phase of the professional journey of young people is not good, but better at the candidate level than it is with the registered professionals. And I note your later example of pregnancy that results in them falling out, but I'm quite certain there's more than just that. So it would be very interesting, and I'm sure it's either work you've already done, or it would be interesting to do that work, to really zoom in and try to understand why do they disappear? Because you would expect that if you had 27 or so percentage of women at candidacy phase, when you go to the higher stages, it should actually go bigger, but it goes the opposite direction. But having said that, thank you once again, Mr. Wasa and the team and yourself, facilitator. You've done an excellent job today. As a department, we remain ready to support our CETA, to support the industry as a whole in effecting this transformation through skills development. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ngandela. Mr. Wasa,
Facilitator, uyandibethisa ngabantu be-webinar, but we have gone beyond the time.
No, but they can't do that because what they have done is they've given us an extra 10 minutes because I also told them that you said this webinar will cut at 12. They said we can extend for an additional 10 minutes. So now they can't now catch you on the side and say, I need to give proper closing remarks to the panel and Umiskili is ready for me there if I don't get to her. So I would like to get just quick closing remarks and we can just end the webinar in a proper way. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Facilitator. And I just want to thank the panelists for honoring our invitation and all the participants on the line. We really appreciate your participation and we're looking forward to engage further with you as Construction CETA. We are ready to make the contribution and I hope that you will work with us in doing so. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Mr. Wasa, and thanks to you for, on behalf of CETA and the team, for arranging this dialogue. We remain confident in that the engagement will not stop from here. Ms. Kele, over to you for your closing remarks.
Thank you very much, Chair of the session. From our side, we would like to see more gender-sensitive kind of procurement. When it comes to everybody across the board, from the CETA to departments to everybody else. Because we are members of the BBC Women's Alliance, whose part of the strategy is to, or part of the hashtag is that we need to put cash in the hands of women so that we empower women to look after themselves. So I'm going to say on this forum, we need to put skills in the hands of the women so that women can be able to go there and translate and change those into cash into their hands. If you were listening to the president's presentation at the Women's Day, actually he mentioned that he would like to see the increase of 40% budget spent on women-owned entities. And for those of you that might know, if you know the Vision 2020 that we are having a SAWIC, you would swear that the president has seen that document because he was talking to it word for word, including the 40% budget for women. So we would like to see that because then when the women have got opportunities, women are able to empower other opportunities, offer so much needed work opportunity for the candidates. Thirdly, we would like to see collaboration of people around this table. It cannot be that we only meet each other when we are having Women's Month, but like I've proposed earlier on, that we need to have joint meetings on a quarterly basis, report to each other and assist each other where we've got pipe blockages that are there. And then so that we can be able to realize the return on investment. We welcome, as closing, we welcome the support, the collaboration and the relationship that we have with the CETA. Right now, I cannot necessarily alter them that much because some of the fault we've taken up in the South organization. Given the fluidity that we have in leadership and the commitment to implement the opportunities that we get to be given by the city. So we thank you and we're looking towards a brighter future of working together with you, Babwasa, before you leave, and in the development of the skills for the women of this country. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you to all the panelists. Thank you to the people who have joined us today. The webinar will be made available on the CETA website should you want to go back to points that have been referenced here. Contact information for CETA. Feel free to go into the website and download and replay the webinar. I'd like to once again thank the panelists today for joining us. It's been fruitful, it's been insightful, but what I know is that it does not end here. And as all of you have mentioned, that we carry the baton beyond these dialogues. But it starts with engaging. It starts with opening the conversations, the right conversations as well around women empowerment and who are the people driving the agenda of women and skills. So thank you for the webinar cutters. I would once again say thank you. This is the end of the session. We will be in contact with those that we've agreed. Thank you so much. We will now end the webinar.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. And thank panelists.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.